we may not see these savings in the long term that we're seeing now in some of this bidding. And beyond that, I think that there are a lot of national security and other concerns that your testimony has raised. And General Adams, I wanted to ask you specifically, in your written testimony, you explain that the contracts that the CRRC won for the U.S. metropolitan transit projects include the delivery of trains that contain Wi-Fi systems, automatic train controls, passenger counters, surveillance cameras, and other technologies that will be thoroughly integrated. In an era where Americans are increasingly concerned about privacy and data privacy and artificial intelligence, can you talk a little bit about how the Chinese government could use some of the advances in artificial intelligence and facial recognition to extract even more value out of its investment in the U.S. transit systems?
Thank you very much. The point of having technology on our trains is ultimately efficiency and safety, which means that we welcome the inclusion of technology in our transit system trains, in our freight rail trains. We want more of it, not less. We're not Luddites. We like technology. China knows that too. And in fact, their technology is advanced. They're not as good as we are, but they're very good. And they know that they can answer our requests for proposal for building transit rail cars in particular, like WMATA is soliciting. They know they can satisfy that, and we want those requirements to be satisfied. But we don't want to, as I go back to, we don't want to enlarge our attack surface. And if we allow them to build the cars that have this advanced technology, we're exposing ourselves to the maximum amount of intrusion that they could ever, and they'll do whatever they can. They're very interested in tracking the movement of the cars. They're very interested in tracking the people that are on the cars. When it comes to transit rail, it's a clear problem for Washington, D.C., because we all ride the metro. But when you talk about the freight rail system, I think the problem gets even more intense because we're talking about tracking the movement of sensitive goods, hazardous waste, toxic chemicals, and so forth. We don't want to let China know where those cars are. If they go into a high-threat urban area, for example, the last thing we want is for China to manipulate the controls on the hatches, either give a false read or give a spoofing read so that we think the hatches are open or closed. They can do whatever they want if they have the control of the telematics on the rail cars. So to sum up, the exposure that we have to technology is something that we actually welcome. However, at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't want to have an attack surface that a potential adversary could exploit.
And just as a follow-up, what kind of safeguards, if any, do we have now to prevent that information from being utilized? Or what do we have in place?
We do have standards for cybersecurity. I think we need to strengthen them. And because so much, especially the transit cars, are property or bought by the local and the state governments, we need to help the state and local governments develop greater, tighter cybersecurity standards. So there's a lot of work to do on that. Certainly, the TIFSA bill is important because the best way to manage risk is to avoid it. We don't want to use federal dollars to purchase Chinese rail cars. Let's avoid the risk. Let's not let them do it.
Thank you very much. I yield back my time.